Alright, so today I wanted to just talk about something that I saw in a video that Rick Beato posted just recently of a bunch of musicians that he found on Instagram and that he thought were of value, to share. And one of them was this piano player, German piano player. I will leave a link. She's a fantastic player. And she was playing something that was very much like Lyle May's influence to my ear, of course. And everything sounded a bit like 80s, 90s fusion. And I wanted to make it, I wanted to show a few ideas, because that style is very much based on voicings and a certain style of voicings and certain styles of writing, a certain style of writing that is not based on diatonic harmony, is not based on a key, is more based on a sound, and that sound is brought around chromatically. A lot of people call that a constant structure. In very basic term, it's like movable shapes. When you have a shape, it's like G major, you move it up, and that's A major. Obviously, the sound has a lot to do with this. I have added reverb and delay to that intro, but most of it is just picking the right voicings. A voicing is just the notes that you pick within a chord. Okay, when I play C major, I pick the notes C, E, G, and C, and E again, and that's a voicing. It's just choice of notes within a chord. So in the case of the chords that I played in the intro, these were add 9 shapes. And obviously you can look at them in many different ways depending on what the bass is. Let's say if I use this shape, which is B, G, A, and D. If I have E in the bass, that's E minor 9. If I have G in the bass, that's G add 9. So you can use these shapes in many different ways. You can analyze them in different ways. But the idea here is to take one of the shapes and move them chromatically, usually in like thirds, minor thirds, and this would be a major second. This would be minor third, major third. But you can see I just shifted the shape, and I have a particular cluster chord because there's a half step in the middle. It's more like what a piano player would play. There's a half step in the middle that clashes, but there's a tenth, there's a pleasing interval on the outside. And that's why these chords sound nice, because they're a mix of the two things. They're very much piano style chords. And when I played in the intro, it's very similar to what the piano player was playing, which I played this shape, which is the same shape as this. It's the same shape, but in a different set of strings. Apologies, my guitar is not, I need to put some new strings, obviously. And then I moved it down, fourth, and then again. This is the low shape of the same add 9 structure. Okay, so. And the minor version of that, or I should say another shape that is quite used because it has that interval of a minor second within and a tenth on the outside, is this. A lot of the time you can hear this in like E minor 9. This is used quite often. Okay, but I can move it up, F sharp minor 9. This is obviously tricky to play. Or A minor 9. And you can see in that little bit that I played in the intro, I take the structure and move it down a minor third. A minor 9, F sharp minor 9. Okay. Another thing that you can do is take these this kind of sus thing, because obviously this would be G major, and this would be a sus version of that. And you can, by changing the bass, say I could play G sus, A flat major 7 sharp 11, A minor 11. Again, I'm just basically playing that bass going up, and B flat 6 9, I think this is major 3rd, 9th, 13th, so it's called a 6 9. So you can see that these kind of sounds, they're a bit more ambiguous. This doesn't give a particular key. They lend themselves really well for that kind of fusiony sound. So the important thing is that the melody at the top is very singable, so to speak. It's a strong melody, it's a simple melody, because obviously the harmony is quite intricate and thick. So I want the melody to be quite simple. So I think what I played in the intro and what that girl was playing on the piano. Okay. It's just a bunch of notes that create a nice melody. And let's say if I picked another melody. See, this lends itself quite well to that, especially if I dial up the reverb and I switch the delay on. It's quite ethereal in a way. It gives you that idea of space. Okay. Most importantly, because it's not recognizable as diatonic. It's not within a key. Okay. So if you had to improvise a bit like a la Alan Allsworth, you would have to consider each one of those chords as something, depending on what the bass is. Usually, regardless of the bass, let's say if I picked this structure here. Okay, this is either F minor 9, A flat major 7. So I could play one of the major scales, okay? Or most likely A flat Lydian. Okay, so each one of those, if I then went up a whole step, it would be B flat Lydian. Okay, and that's the idea really, just like consider each one of those chords, improvise chord by chord, make the changes rather than play over a progression, over a diatonic progression. So each one of those chords is a chord of the moment with a scale of the moment, so to speak. Hope this makes sense. I'm trying to not be too technical, even though within this music you kind of have to, I don't have to be too academic in a way, but within this music you kind of have to. Yeah, so try and experiment a little bit with that. I don't want to add too much to it, but that's really that sound. Okay, that's what the sound is. Very much shape, voicing driven music. You find a nice sound in voicing and you just move it around. A little bit in like R&B, if I can turn off the delay. So maybe not the correct sound here, but it's a little bit like in new R&B or new soul. You can see, because those are very much driven by a sample that is triggered by a MIDI controller. And in the MIDI controller, either you have different samples or the same sample shifted chromatically. So let's say you would have on one button, you would have this sample. And in the next one, you would have this sample. In the next one, you would have this one. Okay, so you just go in. I love that new R&B music is using the same process by using a sample transposed chromatically. Something like that. It's the same sample. The producer will trigger the sample by pushing a button on the sampler. Okay, so this can be played organically, It's very common to find this in like new R&B music, so new soul, whatever you want to call it. All right, so if you found this of any value, as always, like, subscribe, share on social media, on forums, with a friend, and check out the links in the description. I have some instructional materials, some